Let me highlight to you the following housekeeping rules for this webinar. The organizer will mute the microphones of all participants during the section. You may post your questions or comments during the section using the chat function, right? And I will compile and ask on behalf at the end of the presentation of the speakers. We will only ask the questions after all three speakers have finished their talks. Only if it is urgent or you wish to ask or speak verbally to the panelists after their presentation, you may use the raise hand function. Okay, only if it is urgent, right? And for Utah staff, you will be awarded with 1.5 CPD points only upon completing the section for a minimum of 1 hour and 15 minutes. So you should be here live with us at least for 1 hour and 15 minutes. Attendance will be taken at the early of the section as well as at the end of the section. So that's all on the housekeeping rules. I hope everyone got the points. So now let us go and move into the core part. Yeah. So today we are here to understand the needs of industry-academia collaboration. So at this juncture also, I would like to congratulate Utah for being one of the 8 universities in Malaysia to be listed among the top 200 Asian universities under the Times Higher Education Asia University Rankings 2020. And for your information, one of the selection criteria or category for these rankings are industry income with a contribution of 2.5% of the category. So this category is actually assessing the university's ability to have industry with innovations, inventions, and consultancy, which is basically the knowledge transfer. Thus, we believe, right, the industrial collaboration is a core mission of the contemporary global economy. Therefore, it is believed that the partnership between academia and industry is a symbiotic relationship. Academic produces graduates who will serve the industry, whereas research developments and achievements in the universities are taken up by the industry and turned into products and services. Industry, on the other hand, looks to the academia for solutions to their concerns. Thus, in this webinar section, we will focus on the aspiration of Utah towards academy-industry collaboration. We will also discuss the ways to foster the relationship, how to overcome the challenges, how to satisfy the expectations, and last but not least, strategies that we really need to uphold in order to have a successful and long-term collaboration with the industry partners. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the first speaker of today's section, IR Prof. Dr. Yu Hong Tat. He is currently the President and CEO of University Tunku Abdul Rahman and also a Senior Professor of Lee Kuan Chai Faculty of Engineering and Science of Utah. His research interests includes microwave remote sensing, satellite image processing, wireless sensor network, and intelligent computing. He's also active in consultancy and in technopreneur development works, and currently he is engaged as a consultant or advisor for several listed and startup companies in Malaysia. His presentation title for today is Academic Life, Career and Challenges. I welcome Prof. IR Dr. Hugh Hong Tat.
Okay, thank you very much to Dr. Sumati as the MC. I think she mentioned about my involvement in this listed company and also startup, but I think since I actually take this position, I think I have not done this one. Okay, so let's fully focus on the university operation. But I will be happy to share with you all these things so that today we can have a fruitful discussion. Okay. Now, my presentation will be more actually overall. Okay, then to give you a little bit more about the academic life, career and challenges, and why collaborations is important. So I've started sharing my slide. I'm not too sure whether can you all see the slide?
Yes, Prof.
Okay. Yeah. So I make it bigger. Okay, let's start now. Okay. Now, as you know, university is actually basically a knowledge institution. Okay. So the culture is actually the passion for knowledge. That's why a lot of things that we do, we focus on knowledge creation and preservation, which is research and publications, and also knowledge dissemination through teaching and supervision, so that more people, the knowledge can be transferred to the students and also to our actually industry partners. Then finally, knowledge applications is through consultancy, contributions to university and society. So most of the universities in the world, you can see that they are playing these three roles in terms of the three categories of knowledge activities. And if you look at UTAR, okay, the vision is to be a global university of educational excellence with transformative societal impact. So now, since today we are talking about in academic industrial collaborations, so what we are actually putting into our vision is actually, in addition to actually providing quality educations to our students, so that they can become actually employable graduates, okay, in this case, all those graduates that are joining the job market and all that, they will also bring the impact to the industry and the society, but also at the same time, from our research and from our training and other activities, we will also want to bring transformative societal impact so that the community, the society, the nation together can actually meet up with the challenges of all the new technologies. Okay, through our mission, which are universal values in our belief, tenacity in overcoming challenges, which is particularly important in this time of COVID-19 pandemic, agility in actually facing new frontiers, as well as responsibility in pursuit of excellence. Now, in terms of our six education pillars of UTAR, we have this virtual and morality, creativity and innovation, aesthetic and harmony, sociality and humanitarianism, physical and mental health, and also knowledge and interact. So all this is actually something that we want to actually help our students to develop. And at the same time, of course, this is equally important also for our staff. How ourselves can actually develop in all these six areas. Now, then, with a lot of things for us to do and all that, then of course, we need to do teaching, learning, consultancy, research project, getting funding, contributing to society, administrations, and many other things and all that. How to balance this is something always we like to actually consider and also to think further about it. Okay, so today let me actually also share with you some of these things. So it is always important that we have how we can actually balance the academic life in then career and challenges, or maybe more appropriate word is integrating all of them, because all those activities we see here are actually knowledge related. So how we can actually integrate and synergize of them so that we can actually perform in all these areas. Okay. Now, first of all, I think all of us join this academia because we love knowledge, joy of knowledge. We love teaching, we love sharing, we love creating knowledge and all that. So it is actually very important for us to always, whenever we think that we are a bit tired, or sometimes maybe actually a bit stressed and all that, think about the original joy of knowledge. That is how we choose to actually join the academia. So a lot of time thinking about this original intention is always good for us to know what we need to do and all that. Okay, rather than doing just for the sake of doing. Okay, so in the academic life is actually about creation and dissemination of knowledge and passion for learning, which I mentioned to you all. Now, academic life is also the life that you can work on areas of interest, which is no boundary. Okay, in this academic job and all that, for research interest and all that, we have the choice to choose the area of interest we want to work on. Okay, and because we are interested in that area, then naturally we will spend more time on this one, and proportionally maybe we may be able to get actually better result and better achievements. And this itself, the whole process itself, is a rewarding experience. And as an academic, the sky is the limit basically. So all over the world you can see that there are academic staff who become actually famous writer, the books, bestseller books writer. They can be actually appearing in the TV, in the or writing in the magazines, or actually chairing international society committee, organizing conferences, helping and be the think tank for the government or for any organization, providing consultancy, writing their own books, giving lectures, webinars, and all. So the sky is, in fact, is actually the limit. No, the more you actually extend, you can do many things. That is, all of these are actually very rewarding. Okay, so if you have this open-minded kind of approach, of course, with the more integrated effort, a lot of time you find it is actually a very rewarding experience. Okay, now I would like to share with you is actually about this growth mindset. It's proposed by Professor Carol Dweck of Stanford University, and now it's actually very popular. People used to say that why Silicon Valley, even though they have many times that they have the down time and all that, they always can pick up and then and bring the next wave of technology. It's because in Silicon Valley they have a lot of people with this growth mindset and empathy. Okay, now for those people with fixed mindset, so they would think that, okay, whatever is status quo, okay, if you talk about university teaching, this is face-to-face teaching, and now we have online teaching and learning. Okay, so for those with fixed mindset, they think that intelligence is static. Good students, if they are good with academic result, they will continue to be good. Weak student will continue to be weak. This is what we call fixed mindset, because they thought that intelligence is linked. Okay, so they and a lot of time they like to avoid challenges, give up easily and all that. Always think that how come, when can we go back to the good old days? Or maybe sometimes they also think about when can we go back to January this year or whatever. Okay, but on the other hand, for those people who have actually growth mindset, they believe that intelligence can be developed. Okay, it is their attitude is desire to learn, want to learn new things, continue to improve themselves, and they embraces challenges. Whatever feedback, criticism, they are willing to learn and then to overcome to actually continue to improve on this one. Now, this growth mindset people will actually treat that. Now, every student, as long as they put in effort, they can become better. Okay, so even the weak student, as long as they can put in effort, they still have hope, they can grow. The same thing for actually staff. For all of us, if we are determined, we want to develop in one area and all that, we must have this growth mindset that we want to become actually better in that sense and continue to develop ourselves. That's why with those people with growth mindset, when they look at like symbiosis or academic development, they'll see that, okay, how I can combine these three.
Prof, we can't hear you.
Okay, somebody actually, okay. So whatever we are doing, okay, in teaching, research, and collaborations, okay, we can actually integrate them and together so that it's a more synergized approach. Okay, so in terms of teaching, of course, it's actually always this joy of sharing knowledge. Okay, and a lot of time when we talk about lecturing, it's inspiring the students and then learn so that they can learn new things, so that they can go beyond, not just the lecture content we teach them, but learn beyond. Okay, so over here, like case studies, is actually this Institute of Postgraduate Studies of Princeton University. Okay, over there, this is a very special institute. A lot of actually staff, they just need to do research. Okay, they don't need to do teaching, but because there's no actually whatever target that they need to achieve. But over the years, they may not actually be as dynamic as those where they have this teaching and also student community. Okay, and the same thing is actually, for example, the star professor at MIT, they are the one who actually are teaching the undergraduate courses. We are not saying that they only teach postgraduate, but also teaching undergraduate courses, because they believe that if at the undergraduate time, we can share with the student with a good fundamental knowledge and inspire them, that will help them to grow. Okay, so the same thing like President of Harvard University, Professor Derek Bok, okay, he actually mentioned the purpose of undergraduate education is, is actually all these 8 items, how to help them to learn to communicate, to think, to build characters, and to prepare for citizenship, living with diversity, preparing for a global society, and also acquiring broader interests and preparing for a career. So you can see that what he's suggesting is actually a more rounded kind of approach, so that the student develop with multiple intelligences, with multiple intelligence and all that. So the same thing is actually for staff, okay? If we only look at teaching or research as a separate entity, then we may not actually have this cross-disciplinary development of skills, okay? But if we get involved in consultancy, industrial collaboration, we learn about how to manage the research funding, all this will also help in our research and teaching as well, okay? So coming to about this research, research ability is actually a learned skill, not something that born with you all and all that. So that means that it is possible that we can pick up this skill, okay? And when the broad definition of our PhD holder is actually they should be somebody who will be able to conduct research independently in any field of interest, okay? So that development of this independent research skill is critical for the PhD training, okay? So whenever we are doing this kind of thing, it is very important to realize about the power of habit, because of the habit, you accumulate, and if you are doing the right thing, the result will also accumulate. The result will also accumulate. So it is always actually true that a lot of people, distinguished professors and fellows, they always like to share with junior staff, build out this power, these habits. For example, or we may be busy with our teaching activities and all that, or admin and all that. Always allocate certain sessions, certain time in a week to do your research, to read up, to continue to do collaborations and all that. Okay, so that kind of momentum is actually very important. Okay, that kind of momentum is actually very important. Okay, so looking at the problems, okay, what kind of problems we need to work with the industry? Okay, what kind of problems we need to work with the industry? Okay, interesting problems, a problem really faced by the industry or community. Okay, now in this case, a lot of time we would like to find out that what the industry is actually needing. Okay, is basically something that they would like to commercialize it later. So when we work with the industry, if we can really solve their problems, most likely that commercialization is actually quite immediate. Okay, and that is the one that will bring the social economic impact and advancements of knowledge and all that. Okay, so when we look at this one, a lot of time we are trying to search to understand what the industry will need, but maybe from talking to them, go and visit them, realizing their problem, talk more. A lot of times actually the first few meeting may be actually not fruitful, but just to gather information and know. And then whenever they find out that you can contribute your knowledge to help them to solve something, then they will engage you with more and more. And from all the collaborations with industries experience that we have, and also we notice from past record, the moment we can have a good collaboration relationship with a company, and if that company is continue to grow or continue to actually sustain, a lot of time this research relationship will continue. They just need to allocate annual budget for that one because they believe that the return is good. Okay, so then this mode of industrial academic collaboration is different from the one that we actually get from grant. Because from grant, after you submit a topic and you get a grant from a grant scheme and all that, next time if you want to do more, then sometimes because there are so many applications, they may think that, okay, last time I already support this kind of project, this time I should support other kinds of project. But for industry collaboration, if you can really help them to solve the problem, they'll continue wanting you to continue with this research. Okay, but of course in research, a lot of times as these emotional factors, always sometimes research may take longer time than it seems it's thought to be, and it's actually crucial to success to make your research part of your everyday life. Okay, you may find the rate of progress seems to vary wildly. Okay, but it is very important that you keep the momentum. Every day you do something, and then you keep following up. For example, industrial collaboration, and that is something that you can actually progress. Okay, and sometimes some people they may say that, okay, maybe very difficult to start the engine. Okay, then you have to know your momentum. Normally it is better for you to do morning or afternoon or actually during night time. Okay, but a lot of time once you start the process, you start going in and all day, you can find out that you can actually sustain. The difficult part is actually to start it. Okay, but after you start it, and then you have to actually continue to actually live with it and work on it. That will always actually give you something better. Okay, now it is always actually shared with many researchers that whenever emotionally we are down because the progress is slow in our research or whatever, it is useful to read some of the scientific autobiographies or any kind of autobiography that will actually motivate you, that you want to continue. Okay, now let me share with you a little story with by Richard Feynman. He is actually a Nobel Nobel Prize winner. Okay, in physics. Okay, very famous physicist. Okay, now he actually share with people a lot of his thinking. First of all, he always think that teaching helps to complement research, because sometimes when we think which is actually already in our brain, it is already stereotype. When during the teaching, student may ask some question, may seem to be silly questions and all that, that will trigger you to think about the fundamentals. And then suddenly you realize that, how about this approach? So he always think that teaching helps to complement research. Okay? And in fact, when he first joined Cornell, he could not do research for some time. And the head of department didn't always knock on his door and ask him about the progress. But later he realized that he used to enjoy doing this physics. Then why did he show that he could not actually put in some time during that time? Okay, so he found out that in fact he goes to his original joy of knowledge, goes to original why he want to join academia, why the original joy of knowledge. And then when he goes back to teaching, when they share with children and all that, then he suddenly realized about this joy of research and then start going on. And after that, sometime after that, then he managed to do some work that win him Nobel Prize. Okay, so again, coaching the students in postgrad situation is also very important. We like to train them to become independent researchers. Now, when we work with the industry, one question they always like to ask is this. Now, you can solve our problem, but how do you help us to train our staff? So one way that you can do is actually, you can tell that maybe some of the staff who are working on this project can do master and PhD studies. And then I'll coach them. And when they graduate and they acquire this research skill, they can be your staff force, and you have actually, we can help you to build out this research capacity in your company. So this is something actually very important that you have to link that up. Okay. So of course, we hope that the student will always know better than supervisor and always give the encouragement so that they can improve themselves. Okay. So when it comes to this one, I would like to also highlight to you something important versus urgent. Okay. Now, a lot of times in life, there are many urgent things. For example, now we have this thing, we have to handle urgent things for online teaching, learning, and all that. But this analogy to health, for example, health, we know that it's important to have good diet, balanced diet, to do exercise, to sleep early and have enough sleep and all that. So these are important, okay? But sometimes they may not be that urgent. Whenever we see good food, whenever we are a bit tired, we say, oh, maybe I'll do the exercise next week. Or whenever we are actually watching Facebook or YouTube and all that, and you say that maybe I can sleep later, okay? But those important things, if you think that is really important, you can actually build it into your daily life by making it as a habit, by actually scheduling it inside there. Then slowly you can actually, beside handling urgent things, you can also do important things, okay? So this actually goes well with research as well, especially when we work research with industry, because industry sometimes they have the timeline. That will help us to combine the research, which is important, and the urgent request from the industry together to help us to grow. But a longer journey always starts from the first step, very important. As long as we move, put in effort, we can actually, one day we'll reach the destination. Okay, so industrial collaboration and consultancy, this is solving real problem. And a lot of times win-win partnership is very important, because to those junior staff, if we do not have any expertise and experience in consultancy, maybe we should treat the first project, a second project, and all, as something like you are learning, as something you are like you are learning. Okay, so in doing this, so then initially maybe you're also willing to not charge them so high or even free, so that when they build out the confidence with the industry and all that, a lot of time you can do this for more long-term projects and all that. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, and of course administrations, all this administration duty will help you to develop your ability to manage research project, research consulting project with the industry. So that's why what I say is integrating, is synergy. Whatever you learn in one sector will help you when you do the other sector. And when you talk to industry, they may actually introduce postgrad student, research funding, consultancy, and other things, okay? And of course, sometimes as a part of servicing to the community, you never know. When you serve to the community, you help NGO, organization to develop something. Some of them who have companies, they may say that, oh, why don't you also come to my company and help us to solve this problem? So when you come to this one, sometimes we cannot be too calculative. The moment you actually devote more time to actually help the industry, sometimes sooner or later you can see that they'll come back to you if they think that the effect is good. And there's a lot of time you may actually have grow the relationship and for more long-term relationship. So I think, so basically for career advancement and all that, today I share with you overall, and later there's Q&A session. You can ask more questions on this part, okay? But again, growth mindset is very important. To many things we have not done before, we may not know how to do, but never mind. As long as you have the growth mindset, you like to learn, okay? So if you have some of our colleagues who have gone to serve consultancy, maybe you can talk to them. Let you in to be somebody who can do a small part first, so that you can learn. The same thing for research project with the industry. And once you learn, and then you create and you develop your credentials, then slowly more and more people will come and actually search for you and all that. So basically, this is actually a very overall overview of this, what the academic staff normally need to do, and how they can synergize for the academic industrial collaboration. Thank you very much. Back to Dr. Sumarti. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Yu, for the enriching input. So we will ask the Q&A section. We will be at the end of the section after all the speakers have done. Okay, and I'm still waiting for questions from the participants. I hope you all are still engaged with us. Right. So now we move on to our second speaker for today. That will be Associate Professor Dr. Yamuna Munsami. She has started her academic career in Petrochemical Engineering Department in Utah in year 2010. She is actively engaged in collaboration activities with industries and had managed to secure industrial-based research grants from Top Glove, UP Packing Sdn Bhd, VDC Integrated Sdn Bhd, and she also have recently successfully received the Public-Private Network Research Grant, which is PPRN grant from the government. She acts as a technical consultant for Bridgefield Resources Sdn Bhd and Asia Printed Circuit Sdn Bhd. Her main research collaboration with industries involves development of practical solutions or product for sustainable operations. Her presentation title for today will be Exploring Collaboration and Open Innovations with SMEs. I welcome Associate Professor Dr. Yamuna Munsami.
Okay, good evening everyone. Dr. Sumadi, can you see my presentation slides?
Yes, Dr. Yamuna.
Okay, so welcome to all the participants. And so I will enlarge my slide now. Okay. So hi, so I'll be presenting more on the exploring collaboration and open innovation with SMEs. Okay, I mainly focus on SMEs around us because they are accessible. There are huge amount of SMEs, even if we are in Kampar or we are in anywhere else in our hometown. Okay, if we just take a drive through our hometown, okay, we will find out there are many SMEs in various scales around our within our reach. So there's a huge opportunity for collaboration with SMEs. So a little bit more on me. Okay, so my background is basically in polymer engineering. To be specific, is polymer composite materials. So most of my collaboration is involving with manufacturing sectors in this industry. So I joined Utah in 2010. So when I joined Utah, I believe that any academic staffs, okay, in the beginning of their career, they will check the list of KPIs that they need to achieve. So I did the same. Okay, so when I look into the list of KPI, consultation is one of them. And to be truthful, there was a barrier in myself because I already in the lab spent my most around nearly like 6 years in the lab, okay, doing lab works, completing my PhD, and before that studying. So to actually approach industry seems like a very big challenge for me. So anyhow, I have to do it if I want to advance in my career. So the first thing I did is I joined a collaboration work in 2011 with a team of collaborators. So I joined as a co-consultant. The research was led by another colleague. The research is a three-party research between HVW Technologies, Platinum Nanochem, and Utah. And the research was quite successful because we managed to secure a collaboration grant, and it resulted in patent, and we were included as investigator in the patent. So I learned so many things from my colleague through this collaboration, and actually it was a learning process for me, okay, to learn what industry want, what they need, and we should not conduct research in isolation. Okay, so after that, I started to approach some of the SMEs, which is related to my field, and that's where I started to collaborate with companies like Bridgefield Resources, Uppacking, EggTech, VDC, and the most recent one is Sunridge Integrated, which is located in Senawang. So why I actually put my focus in the small medium enterprises is because there are many technological gap and lack of resources in the small medium enterprises, which we can contribute to address this gap. Okay, so the small medium enterprises in Malaysia is actually under the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, and they can be categorized into three sectors. Okay, the first is the manufacturing sectors, services, and also the other sectors. When we say other sectors, that includes the agriculture sector, mining and quarrying, and construction. So there are room for every academician and researcher to work on in SMEs. And further, they are also categorized based on the scale. They are categorized into the micro scale, small scale, and medium scale. And this categorization is basically based on the number of employees they have and also their sales turnover. It is very important for us to know the scale of the SME when we want to apply for a joint collaborative grant like a PPRN, for example. And how does these SMEs contribute to our economic growth? Okay, if we look into their contribution to our GDP in 2018 itself, to the overall GDP, they have contributed 38.3% to the overall GDP. So this amount is a large fraction. And if we turn this to a dollar and cents value, it is actually 521.7 billion ringgit Malaysia. So this industry is really big. So, and if we compare the contribution of the non-SME GDP growth rate with the SME GDP growth rate, we can see that starting from the 2004, every year the GDP growth rate for the SME is higher compared to the non-SME GDP. And if we look into the distribution of sectors, okay, to see the relevancy of the sector to us, academicians and researchers, we can see in the manufacturing sector, the major component is the petroleum, chemical, rubber and plastic industries. Meanwhile, the service sector, more than half, 63.9%, is contributed by the wholesale and retail trade, food and beverages and accommodation. And for information, actually the service sector, the SME sector, the large contributor to the SME GDP is the service sector, is not the manufacturing sectors. So there's a lot of opportunities for academicians in Faculty of Business, Arts and Social Science and ICT in this field. And in terms of contribution to the employment, Malaysians, 66.2% of Malaysians are actually working in SMEs. Okay, so they more than half of the employment rate is contributed by the SMEs. So what does this number means to us as a researcher? Why I gathered all this number is to show you that there's a huge opportunity. Okay, we just need to go out there and reach for them. Okay, and then together with the opportunity, we also have a major responsibility as a researcher and academician, because we have to contribute technology and our knowledge and be relevant to these SMEs surrounding us, because we must ensure their survival and the sustainability of this business in the ever-changing global economic environment, especially now with the COVID-19 situation. So they have to reinvent the way they are doing business, and now we can come in to help them. Okay, this is our responsibility as a researcher and an academic institution, because they are contributing to the economy, to the employment rate. So this is a cycle, and if they cannot sustain their business, there are no place for our students to get a job also. So this is actually an ecosystem that we are responsible to maintain. So what are the current issues in SMEs? If we look into the annual growth of SMEs in terms of productivity growth from the year 2017 to 2018, you can see a decrement in productivity growth, which means that there are a large number of SMEs, but the productivity rate is lower. This is mainly contributed by the lack of adaptation of the IR 4.0 technologies, also the trade war, and also because of the less competitiveness of our product, because now the market is open. So our product must be competitive with the international market product. Okay, so the other issues which the SMEs are facing is lack of innovation in terms of both the process and the product, because SMEs normally they don't have much resources to fund innovation inside their facility, so they need to outsource. So we as an academic institution can use this opportunity and give them an affordable service. Okay, and of course a lack of scale. Once they start up their company, after a few years, they need to upscale so that they can capture new market. But unfortunately, most of the SMEs, they stay where they are. So by years, they become irrelevant and not competitive. And this is And of course, the big white elephant is a lack of finance. But according to the SME Bank and many government agencies, we actually give funding to these SMEs. 60% of the times, the funding is rejected because SMEs fail to show a good audit report, or also lack of financial account keeping, which we also can come in, where we can help them with the audit and account keeping, because they don't really invest in skilled personnel to do this in their company. And of course, lack of managerial skills, where they don't have a good management practice and human resources practice, which inhibit them from expanding and growing. And increased cost of doing business, this is in terms of energy, the cost of energy, the cost of human resources, because now we have the minimum wages policy, and also it become more stringent to hire foreigners to work in the company. So we must, they are looking into ways to cut costs in terms of the money they spend for energy, and also to reduce labor dependence in certain processes. So they are going for automation. So many of my colleagues ask me why they just don't use a shelf solution. If we go for the rubber and the plastic industries in Malaysia, we'll be surprised to see that most of their packaging section is highly labor intensive. For example, we visited a company which producing mattress, and they are actually exporting their mattress to European Union, the countries in European Unions. So they need to load the mattress inside a container. For this process, they take 6 to 7 laborers to do it. So this is very labor intensive for them. So they are looking for a solution from our side to provide them for a more automated process. So this will involve work starting from understanding their need, drawing the automated components and the line, stimulating the line, and then they can fabricate it in Malaysia, and this will definitely reduce the implementation cost of automation from their side. And of course, lack of market access. Surprisingly, if we look into the data by the Department of Statistics Malaysia, only 13.3% of the companies, the SMEs in Malaysia actually involved in the export market. So this is a very low percentage, mainly because they simply don't have or they lack of knowledge in terms of being compliant to the code and requirement of the international market, especially the European market. It's very hard to penetrate the European market. For example, we can see that we have a lot of local herbal products, cosmetic products that we claim that it is safe, it is good, okay? And in terms of quality, is comparable with international product. But we cannot market it to European countries because we are lack of knowledge on the compliance to commercialize it in their market, and also we don't have sufficient guidance on the route on what kind of data to gather to actually show as an evidence to market these products. Okay, so here I would like to highlight some of the case study from my team here in FEGT with our consultation work with the SMEs. So the first one that I would like to share with the participant today is the work with the Bridgefield Resources Sdn Bhd. This company is located in Selangor. So basically they are scheduled waste collecting company. That's how they start their business. Okay, so in the year 2012, we have visited them. Okay, so I highly encourage all the participants and researchers to visit SMEs, okay, other than just focusing on the multinational companies, okay. So we visited them. So in the starting, for the first few visits, it was more like we get to know each other. We try to understand their business and what is their aspiration. So after that, we did the joint FYP supervision. So joint final year project supervision, because normally SMEs, they have a very limited fund. So for them to invest in a project or a consultation work, they must gain certain level of confidence on you that you can yield good result for them. Okay, so we worked in this consultation project for nearly 6 months. in this FIP project for nearly 6 months, and we have signed a non-disclosure agreement in both sides. Okay, and then after these 6 months, we got the results. Okay, and after we get the result, we have started the consultation work with some monetary value. And in fact, this company is very good because they actually have the idea on how to do things. Okay, they want to develop a new product. They know how to do it. They have all the chemicals. They have the processes. But now they need a consultant to come in because they don't have a scientist or engineer to develop a draft of a patent, to collect sufficient data to guide them to patent their innovation. So we helped them with that, and we did the processing, the proof of concept in our laboratory here, and we had a legal agreement signed between them and the consultant in Utah. Okay, and then we are selected as a technical consultant and have been listed as an investigator in their drafted patent. Okay, so now we also have a PPRN grant together with them. So this is how consultation work can help SMEs to solve the problem related to innovation. In our second case, we have worked with a company called Asia Printed Circuits Sdn Bhd. This company is just around 2 kilometers away from Utah. Okay, but from 2012 to 2017, we don't even know that. I don't know, especially me, I don't even know they existed in Kampa. Okay, so after that, we reached out for this company, and then they have visited our faculty. Okay, and we had some general meeting to find the common ground of interest. So this company, they are actually producing a printed circuit board, and day by day, they have to be very competitive in the market because the quality control of this printed circuit board is becoming stringent. So they have to do a lot of quality control check and tests for their product. And they are unable to set up a quality control facility inside their own company because this need a lot of resources. So our institution is just right there. So they have intention to collaborate with us, and our team actually went to their company for 3 months to learn about their processes, their limitation, and their capability and their requirement. And after 3 months, we have signed the consultation agreement, and we are providing the chemical testing facility for them for nearly 2 years now. And we are also helping them to setting up facility more on automated process for their PCB production line. Okay, this is also how we can contribute. We can contribute in terms of service to our local SMEs with affordable prices. Okay, and this company Uppacking Sdn Bhd is another one of our collaboration work. This company is located in Sungai Siput. So because we managed to satisfy the Asia Printed Circuit company, so they recommended us to the Uppacking boss, and they have more focused need and business plan. Actually, they want to create a new, totally a new plant near their existing plant to produce motorcycle gasket. So they need us to develop the formulation. Same, they don't have the research facility in their company. So in this case, it's a bit different. It was not a consultation agreement. It was a research agreement. So they sponsored our one master student, our student. And and there's an agreement that if the student managed to develop the new product, they will be also hired in the company. So you can see all the synergistic effect as mentioned by Prof just now. Okay, we tackle the problem. We also get the research going on, and we also have employment for our graduate. So we also provide service and giving them consultation on setting up the whole new facility. It's a great learning experience for me and my team because we are always here in the university. We are doing our research. All this while we are doing the technology transfer, but we are not involved in setting up a plant. So we learn a lot in terms of constraint, government regulation, how to use renewable energy. We had this company, all the roof is actually fixed with solar panels, how to handle with TNB. So it's a great learning experience for us. And of course, the last one that I want to highlight here is a collaboration with the CMY Handy Sdn Bhd. This company is located in Parit Bunta. So their problem was more on the market access. They already been marketing their product to Asian countries, but they want to penetrate the European market, so they need to comply to the Green Code compliance, where to penetrate the European market, you have to have evidence to show that you are using a less environmental constraint process or material, okay, to produce your product. So we have actually substituted some of their material with recyclable material, managed to produce the product, and they managed to market it to the European market. Okay, so this is some of the part that we take to actually contribute to our SME. And in the meantime, we have learned a lot from them. Okay, and in terms of intellectual property, one of the major barriers that stops collaboration between academician and also the industrial partners is the intellectual property problem. They are not one standard for intellectual property management. It all depends on different university management. But for the participants which are from Utah, there are no need to be to take this as a challenge or a barrier which stops you from working with industrial partners. There are 3 departments which in Utah which actually very helpful in guiding us, okay, to take care of our interests, okay, protecting us when we are working with industry. So the main department is of course the DCC, Department of Consultation and Commercialization. And then if you are interested in signing MOU and MOA, you can contact the DC IRNet. And if your mode of collaboration is in terms of research, then more on the research grant, then you can look for IPSR. But even in the beginning, I don't know which department to contact. I just contacted DCC and they're very helpful in managing or guiding me for the successful collaboration. Okay. And of course, if there are lack of funding, just say you have a potential product or process that you can develop for a SME, you can apply for a joint research grants. There are many joint research grants available there, like the PPRN grant, CRES grant, MREPC grant, MDEC grant, MPDC grant, and CRADLE. In fact, realizing the importance of industrial academic collaboration. Even now, if you want to apply for a PRGS grant, you must have an intent letter from the industry. So that's all from me. If any further questions, I'll be more than happy to answer in the question and answer session.
Thank you, Dr. Yamuna. Thanks for enlightening us on the SMEs. Okay, so now we move on to our third speaker for the day. That will be the final speaker, Associate Professor IR Dr. Chan Jun Chun. Okay, he is currently the head of Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering in Lee Kon Chai Faculty of Engineering and Science, Utah. His research has been funded by Motorola, Maxis, Malaysia Communication and Multimedia Commission, TM Research and Development, Asia Pacific Telecommunication, and Embassy of France, Kuala Lumpur. His current research focuses on application of AI in signal processing and smart home. His presentation title for today is Academic and Industrial Collaboration. What are the expectations from each other? I welcome Associate Professor IR Dr. Chang.
Okay, thank you so much to MC for the introduction. Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, Dr. Chang.
Okay, so let me start my presentation. Hello, good afternoon, Prof. Yu, to all my colleagues at Utah. I'm Chang from Department of Electrical Electronic Engineering, LKC AFS Sungai Long. Okay, my presentation outline today, I will first start with a sharing of my industry experience. So I started my career in the industry. So what kind of industry collaboration I've done, and some experience and the lesson I've learned, I've gained. And basically, when we collaborate in the industry, what are our expectations? What could be the expectation from industry, and followed by the summary of my presentation. Okay, so I think exactly about 21 years ago, I graduated from my engineering degree. I started my first career as a electrical engineering, so at one M&E contractor in PJ. So I think I spent probably about 1.5 years with the company, and I in charge of the Pandan Hospital project in JB, but I stay most my time in PJ. Okay, so basically, when I work as an engineer, so I found out that something very important is the soft skill. So when I went to the site for meeting, very often, so the problem was not settled at the office. The problem was settled at the canteen during tea break, and then we had discussion and to solve the problem faced at the site. Okay, and then so after that, so I quit my job and decided to pursue my master. So I was a little bit lucky. So because at that time, so my supervisor now he's back to India. He has some link with Motorola Penang. So as a result of this one, my master research project was actually partially funded by Motorola Penang. Okay, and something I learned from this 2 years of collaboration with Motorola Penang is, so first thing, because I get some money from them, so I had to give a weekly update to Motorola, and sometime probably a few times per year, I had to fly to Penang, so to give them some update, to present to them what is the latest update of my research work. Okay, so after that, so after I got my master, so I started some collaboration. So instead of collaboration, probably more to like giving seminar, giving training, because my research interest, one of my passion, so was video compression and video communication. At that time, not many in Malaysia so can conduct this kind of seminar. So I was lucky to have to be given a chance to share my knowledge and also to give some training consultancy like to Intel Telecom Malaysia. And very interesting also, I had a chance to give a training to quite a number of the police officers back in 2015, I think 2014 or 2015. Okay, something I learned from this consultancy giving seminar is it's very important to build your network. Something I remember, I will always remember something I learned from the former president, Professor Chua. I think I've attended a number of his talks. He always mentioned one thing. He said, build your network. So network is very important. For those who just joined industry, probably, for those who just joined the academy, so how you can build your network is, so leave the comfort zone of the aircon office, probably to join some exhibition, to join some fairs, to join some professional society. Get to know people, pass your name card to people. Okay, and who knows? Okay, they may be interested in you, introduce each other, so to share with the industry what kind of service you can provide to the industry. So something I would suggest to colleagues to consider. So especially for those who just join industry, so you can consider, for example, after knowing the industry, hey, hello boss. So why don't I come to your company? I provide, let's say, 1 hour of introduction course to your company for free of charge. Okay, and sometime they may be interested. So after providing the 1 hour, so the senior management may be interested in you, and that's how you slowly build the trust, build the relationship, and you get a chance to promote your consultancy. Yeah, I still remember probably about 10 years ago, I joined a meeting at MCMC Cyberjaya. At that time, I think I met with the general manager of the Media Prima. Media Prima is the owner of NTV7, TV3, the general manager in charge of technical. So I passed in my name card. I say, hey, hello, GM. So I'm Chang, and I can provide my consultancy training in video compression, video communication. Then we exchange name card. Sometimes, to me, we have to use the tactic used by our insurance agent to promote our consultancy. This is sometimes what I do. That means after getting a name card, so many years ago, I will just contact the person, say, hey, I'm Chang, so I'm here to promote my training, blah, blah, blah. So who knows, they may be interested. Okay, so we can develop professional working relationship, and eventually, hopefully, so it's more like academic and research collaboration, research funding. Okay, this is something I think the period from 2009 to 2016, I learned a lot. So I had a chance to, I was lucky and honored to be a chance to lead a research lab. So I think someone I always thank, I think there are few people I need to thank. One is Professor Li Ziwei. So when he left MMU, he passed me a lab. And also the former MMU VP, Professor Tao, and this gentleman at the middle, Tan Sri Dr. Halim. So it was a lab. So basically, initially it was quite empty and set up by MCMC, Ericsson, Telecom Malaysia, and Huawei. Okay, so from this one, through the 7 years, so as a chairperson of the research lab, something I learned is the first one. The first one is dare to ask. No harm trying to ask. Let me share with you a story. So at that time in the research lab, there was no Unified. Back in 2008, 2001, there was no Unified at the research lab, and we desperately we need a good broadband connection. So at that time, so the gentleman, I think the one who set up this lab was actually Tan Sri Dr. Halim. So for some reason, he always bring visitor to visit this lab. He came probably on average once a month. Okay, they asked him, hey, Mr. Chairman, so can you help to arrange a TM Unified? Can I write to you? He said, hey, Chang, why not? See whether I can help. So I wrote to him, and probably within a couple of weeks, so the Unified was installed at the lab, so without any charge from Telecom Malaysia. The other one, Huawei. So at that time, I think it was back in, before I joined Utah, back in 2014, 2015. At that time, so Tan Sri Dr. Halim, he was back to MCMC as a chairman. I can't remember either TM chairman or MCMC chairman. Okay, so he brought the CEO of Huawei Malaysia to visit to the lab. So I said, welcome. I know it was a golden opportunity. So if I miss the opportunity may never come. So in front of the MCMC chairman, I asked Mr. Huawei CEO, can I invite you? Can I invite Huawei as the partner, as a new partner of this research lab? Immediately. So on the spot, the CEO say yes. Okay. So with the one, so the lab got quite some budget to upgrade quite a number of facility. Many thanks from Huawei. So the lesson learned, so never try, never know. So keep on trying. So my success rate was only 5 to 10%. I asked, so I've approached a lot of company. I've been rejected by lots of company, but I never give up. So I think as just now Prof. Yu, he mentioned, whenever we do the collaboration, so we have to think so the win-win situation, always. Okay, from 2016 until now, so I think I joined Utah back in 2015. Okay, so then I had a chance to continue my the good working relationship with Huawei. So and also involved in discussing Huawei ICT Academy. Okay, so and also this one we are still financing. So with one company, company in China. So for the collaboration with the company in China, it's actually started about 2 years ago. Then we were supposed to sign some agreement. So I think back in March, because of the COVID-19, everything was on hold. So, but the other thing I learned is sometimes we need to be patient. We just need to wait and always keep in touch with the company. So, and I'm lucky. So I always keep in touch with the boss of this company in China. Okay. Something I would like to share on the story of PetStat Lab. So it's a story of my colleague. So I think my colleague Dr. Chua, so he showed determination to get the 1 million industry grant. I think it was under the MRT2 project. Why I want to show this one? So because at one time, there was no response for a couple of months. There was no response from the company. But my colleague, he keep on following up. Just like how your insurance agent treat you, keep on calling you. So my colleague keep on contacting the company, never give up. So after few months of never giving up spirit, eventually, so of course, my colleague, so show his determination, sincerity. Dr. Chua, he managed to get 1 million research grant. So one lesson I learned, so something I learned from my colleague is determination. When we do collaboration with industry, basically I think as mentioned by Prof. just now, something we hope to do is knowledge transfer, knowledge sharing. So sometimes we talk to the company because we want to have internship placement. Eventually, so we can have research grant, joint research with the company. Okay, so when we do collaboration with different companies, they have different intention. So after working with some companies, so these are some their intention, their main objective of collaborating. So one company, I managed to get a grant. So the main intention was for double tax deduction. Of course, so when I get the money from the company, so I had to develop some working prototype to show to the company. And it was a applied research, not fundamental research. Usually, when we work with the industry, what they want is they want something quick. So they want apply. So they say, hey, Chung, I give you the money and you develop something. So how can the product you develop sell and make money for my company? This is usually what they want to ask. Sometimes the company, what they want is they want branding. They want to show their CSR. Okay, and for some multinational, especially multinational company, the top one company in Penang. So is my department is maintaining good relation with the company in Penang because the company wants first class, okay, graduate from my department. And the other company, multi-giant company from China, they want also good talent from my department. So, and many thanks to, I think, DCC, Mr. Ching, I think probably about months ago, he sent me an email to say, one company in Balagong is interested to work with my department. So the company, so the intention of the company, so is the company wants to have a local developed technology for the intelligent retail solution. Because I believe the retail, the company manufacture intelligent, the company manufacture the rack, and the profit margin could be low, they want to upgrade. So the GM of the company told me, hey Chung, we know we go to China already has the product, but we hope Utah can develop because we want the technology. We don't want to end up buying everything from China. And if we want to modify something, we have just a minor thing we need to modify, we have to get the help from China. So this is the intention they they want local developed technology, they want to own the IPs, they can control the IP. The other very interesting story, a startup company in PJ. So my collaboration with the company was, I think, quite a number of years. Okay? So they keep on wanting, they want patent. Because it was a startup company, they want the funding, the money from the venture capitalists. So in order to make the product or the company convincing, they need some patent proof to show to the venture capital. So, so I help them to draft some patent in order to attract funding. Okay, some summary. First thing, as mentioned by Prof. Yu just now, we need to start from win-win situation. Okay, so always think. So we collaborate with the company. So what kind of mutual benefits we can bring? Okay, personally, I think Utah, we are in better position to form collaboration with industry because some industry, they say, why there are quite a number of private, sorry, it should be private for profit, my typo, quite a number of private for profit. So I believe industry sometimes may be reluctant to go to have the collaboration with the private for profit. I think Utah, because we are private but non-for-profit, I believe we're in better position. So something I always do, so is meet up with my, show our sincerity. Don't ask them to come. Instead, I go to meet them. So like the company in Paragon, I go to meet the GM for, I never ask the GM to come to meet me. Every time I go to meet with the GM at his office in Paragon. So meet up, maybe coffee break, lunch, okay? So and support official activities organized by the collaborator. Okay, never try, never know. So no harm. So personally, so my success rate was only 5 to 10%. If you don't try, success rate is definitely 0. So something I read recently, COVID-19 may result in deglobalization. So some companies, they want, so because they know that getting foreign help, foreign technology is difficult. The foreign company just cannot support them in Malaysia. So, and could be opportunity for university, opportunity for Utah to have more collaboration like, with the local SME. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Thank you for the very interesting sharing. Okay, so now time really flies. Okay, we have about 15 minutes more left only. That's very fast. So let me go into the Q&A section. So I hope all the participants are still staying in and tuned with us. Right, the first question is from Mr. Ting Cheng Hunt. Okay, it's for Dr. Yamuna. He is asking like how you approach the company in all your collaboration work with the industry. How do you approach them?
Thank you for the questions. Okay, at different stage, I approach them in different ways actually. For example, the first few companies that I worked with in the beginning of my career, I consistently have visited them. Okay, it might started in the student industrial training visit. So when they are doing industrial training, we go for visit the company, right? The students. So I have used that opportunity to promote the services provided by Utah during that session. Yes, some instances that I do that. Some instances, as mentioned by Dr. Chang just now, I attended a few, they are, for example, okay, if we want to know the rubber and plastic industries in Malaysia, right? We can attend the event organized by PRIM, Plastic Rubber Institution of Malaysia. We can also invest our time to attend like Malaysian Rubber Export and Promotion Council meetings. They actually send invitation just as a attendee to the meeting. So in that meetings, we can actually use the opportunity during the tea break. It's not a tea break session, it's actually a networking session. so we can approach them, give their name card. We have to become the salesperson to promote ourselves. And continuously after we get their name card, we have to keep the momentum going. Okay, we can send them a message on how are you, how's business. Okay, can we visit? Can we send our students for internship? So we have to keep the momentum going until there's a right moment when they have something, they will come back to you. And once your credibility is already been built to a certain extent, then it will be a much more easier to do it. That's one of the way that I use.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yamuna. Dr. Chan, from the same person, Mr. Ting has requested, like, how do you manage the work with academics as well as the industrial collaboration, which is very time consuming and is very result time oriented as well?
Okay, thank you so much for I think this is a good question. I believe something we have to do is the planning. So planning, for example, how much time, for example, be allocate for teaching. So how much time we allocate for admin. So for example, let's say myself, probably for example, maybe 40% to 50 or 50% of my time go to administration. Another probably 20 to 30 for teaching, 20 to 30 for research. I believe it come to priority, to planning. You put in your calendar next week when I want to spend my time. So for example, every Thursday and Friday afternoon is for research, nothing else. So every Thursday, Friday, 2 to 5 for research, collaboration, consultancy. So by the time come, hopefully no meeting. So hopefully no meeting called by the boss. So then we can focus on the Thursday, Friday afternoon just for research, consultancy, meet with some potential client, so-called client, consultancy client, talk with them, maintain the relationship.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chan. Right, Prof. Yu, I have a question for you from Mr. Ho Wei Liang. He's a student from Mechatronics Engineering, Year 2, Semester 2. His question is, technical knowledge of fresh graduates may not always meet the industry's expectations due to only one internship chance according to the program structure and more. My question is, except internship, what program may enroll for undergraduate students to improve their competitiveness and get offer from their interest master's program?
Okay, thank you. First of all, I think no university educations can prepare the students for all kinds of jobs they are going to face in future. So the basic training and the internship experience is actually for them to build up those, not just the knowledge, but also the soft skill, the transferable skills, so that when they go out and work, whichever sector or if they change industry or whatever, they can apply this skill so that they can learn new things and then and do the job. So that's why it's important for them to do so. So not to be too afraid about this one. I think as long as whenever you are doing something, be focused and put the best of you inside there. Just like all the consultancy they mentioned just now, even sometimes you have a lot in consultancy, if you don't put your focus and effort in it, then sooner or later people will realize and people may actually not come back to you anymore. It's still very important about that.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yu. I have a question for Dr. Yamuna from Miss Intan Azura. Since these are the common obstacles, does the usage of internet for SMEs help in overcoming the stated obstacles? Usage of internet for SMEs help in overcoming the obstacles in collaboration.
Of course, because the IoT and also ICT adaptation is very important for SMEs, especially in this era, to increase their productivity growth. Okay, the way they do business. For example, the market is not the local market anymore. It's a global market, especially with introduction of online selling and buying platform like Lazada, Shopee, and things like that. So you also have you have two things here. One is the threat and also opportunity. So let's look at the opportunity. Okay, if we can market our SMEs products at the international level using this platform and helping them to achieve this through our knowledge as a researcher in this background, it will be very good and will expand the market for the SMEs.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yamna. I think Miss Lim Gua Eng is in. Miss Lim, are you in?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. Right.
Miss Lim, I think there is a question from Miss Chan Hui Mui on, have we, Utah, tried our hands at training staff at SMEs? So maybe you can share your experience on CCD doing this kind of activities.
Yes, we have actually CCC working actively with a number of our academic staff to conduct training for companies, either in-house or in campus. All right. Some of our academic staff are like Dr. Chua Ken Huat, who was mentioned by Dr. Chang. His area of expertise is in energy management. We've also worked with some lecturers in FAS on I think presentation skills, English, and a variety of topics. All right. So just give us a call. We're very happy to work with you and to connect you with the industry because that's where our relevance is.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lim. Right, the next question is to Prof. Yu. How do we, is from Miss Nadia, okay. How do we best integrate research between faculties? I mean, interdisciplinary, I believe. She said on medicine and engineering within the university.
Yeah, I think it's the same case as I think Dr. Chang mentioned just now. We have to meet each other, okay? go to attend their research center meeting, go to meet up with them, because in our staff directory, we have actually the listing of the expertise of various. Go to talk the person and then know what they are doing. And then I think IPSR annually also organize many times our research colloquium, a lot of sharing about various kind of research. So go and explore. And when you explore and then you connect, then you find out that it is possible for you to do all this kind of cross-disciplinary research. In fact, quite a number of actually our projects are also cross-disciplinary. Very important is actually there to ask, mentioned Dr. Chang as well, and then go and approach. For me, I did not actually share a lot of my experience about consultancy and all that. Sometimes consultancy is actually, you are willing to actually contribute first. Very important, contribute first. Then when they realize your actually contribution, they'll come back to you. So initially, I remember when I first do consultancy for example, JobStreet, they the first week was free. And the second week only onwards is 200 ringgit per month. Okay, but I just continue on. But later when they grow, I'll continue to grow until they are listed and all that. Okay, so it is actually very important for you to help them. So I have this experience, like for example, helping startup. Just now they mentioned, you help them to grow, and then because you help them to build out their capacity, okay, and so when they become stronger and all that, they will need you more, and they will actually supply more resources back to you. Okay, back to you. So I think one thing is actually to contribute first, be focused and do a good job. Very important, do a good job. Just try, don't be too calculative of one consultant, how much, 2, 3, and all that. But if you do a good job in one, just now Dr. Yamuna has mentioned, company will introduce their friends to you. And sooner or later, you have a lot for you to handle.
Okay, thank you, Prof. I have a question from Dr. Yu Tiong Kiat. Okay, for a junior staff without contact and network with industry, may I know is the university has any platform or department to help or introduce industry partners to the junior staff for collaboration? So I think, yeah, Prof, you can answer this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have, for example, DC Internet. You go to approach them, they have actually contact of many companies. Okay, that's one way. Okay, which we have signed MOU with and all that. Okay, you just tell them and what's your expertise and all that. They will try to match company for you. That's one thing. The other one, of course, DCC and others and all that. But actually, from the faculty, they can also introduce to you, your department. One thing is actually when sometimes a department or faculty of university, they announce that there's some company interested in exploring or doing collaboration, you volunteer yourself and then go and join and then do a good job. Then that's how you start with it. And the other one is actually just now, Dr. Yamuna also mentioned about industrial training visits. Now, when the university plan that all staff, they need to go for industrial visit, it is not just to assess what our students are doing, but also to take this opportunity to talk to the company, know what they are doing, and whether they need any help or they want to collaborate with us. So we have quite a number of examples. The staff managed to get this opportunity through industrial training visit. So every time when you have this visit, grab it and then do a lot of networking.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Yu. Maybe Dr. Chang, can you elaborate, like, what is the best advice for junior staff on how to build a collaboration with industry?
Okay, thank you. So this is a good question. Just now I mentioned probably go more to fairs. For example, I think there are different fairs depending on what is your industry, chemical, physics. I think there are different. So go to more fairs, meet with people. The other one probably do more newspaper reading. Let me share a story how I get one consultancy one. Back in 2015, at that time, government of Malaysia through the newspaper announced that Telecom Malaysia get the huge contract on digital video broadcasting. I thought, oh, this is a golden opportunity for me. I know that not many people in Malaysia can conduct this kind of training. I'm one of the very few in Malaysia. Of course, a lot of foreign talent they can do. So at that time I was at MMU. There was a consultancy arm. I talked to the MMU consultant. Hey, this is a good opportunity. Can you help to contact someone influential at TM so to market our the consultancy? And they, of course, they were the salesperson, so they eventually, so we get the consult. So the other way is to know who are the companies related to in your area. So for example, I remember when I was junior, I did something. So I drafted my consultancy training course outline. I sent to the relevant company, the HR, to promote, do my own sales. So this is something some junior colleagues can consider.
Thank you, Dr. Chan. I would like to also add some of my own experience. Recently, I had KL Capone approaching me just because the manager or the research department in KL Capone actually went to read some journals, and they found out that I'm doing something related to palm oil, mill effluent, and also gases removal. So they find out from our publication. So I feel that even your publication could be very helpful in terms of collaboration with industry. If you have a very good impact, that's why whenever we do research, we have to go for the local products, local sources, so that the locals will actually find us. And I was really surprised, and it was a very fruitful collaboration with them. And we are looking forward for more new collaboration and consultancy work with them. And they were very happy with the first one. And recently, I even had somebody from TNB, Tenaga Nasional Berhad, approaching us to actually convert CO2 to methane. And we actually wanted to tender that, but unfortunately now we are still in the infancy stage, so I didn't want to promise them, and I said, okay, maybe the next round. So this is how actually you approach people. Look at your papers. Even the TMB, actually they looked from my publication. So I feel that if you have good publication, try to publish more, and that's where it could be also a starting point for collaboration. Okay, I have another question, maybe the last one for today, because I think we are almost time's up. It's from Mr. Tai Lai Kwan. Do newly found contacts from the industry have to go through Utah paper for collaboration stuff? I think maybe he's asking, like, do we need to go through some paper signing and so on? So Dr. Yamuna, maybe you can share this.
Okay. If you have something going on, like for example, FYP project, and both parties want
Dr. Yamuna, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so if you have a collaboration discussion going on with the company, and
Dr. Yamuna, yeah.
yeah, something is okay. Okay, if you have a collaboration discussion going on with industry and both parties want to protect their interests, okay, you can sign a non-disclosure agreement at the first. So UTA have a standard template for the non-disclosure agreement. So normally what I will do is I will contact Mr. Chin at the DCC and discuss with him the collaboration intention. And after that, he will provide me with the standard template. And then we will send the standard template to the company. And if they have their own legal advisor, they might make some amendments to the template. And it will again vetted through by our legal advisor. Then that will be the first signing, the document that needs to be signed. And as